business owners and executives from around the valley. This is Business Leaders with Lance Cardoza.
Welcome everybody to Business Leaders here on KMPH Fox 26. My name's Lance Cardoza, and every week when I have a different guest in the studios here with Business Leaders, it's like almost family reunion. You see a business person that I've dealt with either in business or indirectly and just met them before, but this, and I'll call you young lady, this young lady, Sheriff Margaret Mims, I met you in Selma, California, I believe. It was Rotary. Mm-hmm. And when you walked into Rotary, I said, she reminds me like family. She's just really, she connects to people really well. And in 2006, you became the sheriff of Fresno County. Before that, you were the very first deputy, woman deputy in the county.
Sergeant.
Sergeant.
To supervise field units. Yeah.
To supervise field unit. Then you were assistant sheriff.
Right.
And then elected sheriff in 2006 and been sheriff since of Fresno. And people see your face all the time and maybe haven't had a chance to meet you, watching you here on Business Leaders. And today we get to find out who Margaret Mims is.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me on. I really enjoy, of course, seeing you all the time, Lance.
Yeah.
But give me a chance to, have an interview where it's relaxed, and I feel that way. And so I'm looking forward to this.
And I think one of the reasons why people elected you as the sheriff of Fresno County, and you have done such an amazing job, is you really connect with people. But at the same time, you uphold the law, and you do a great job. And your team and your deputies and people, when they talk to them about you, they're proud to serve with Sheriff Margaret Mims.
That's good feedback. Good. Well, I think that it's easy for me because I'm from here. I grew up in just right outside of Fresno in the small town of Cardoza, and my first job was picking grapes just in a field right outside of Cardoza, and the commonality of so many people in this area. I'm first generation Californian. My folks, like so many here, came to California from the Dust Bowl area. Yeah. And so it's just an amazing thing to be able to serve, do all the things I've done as sheriff, some amazing things that make me think, how in the world does a girl from Carruthers end up here? But it's a good story, and I just let people know I might be sheriff, I might have done a lot of neat things, met a lot of neat people, but really I'm just a girl from Carruthers.
And through that process too, it wasn't easy.
No.
It doesn't just happen. It's a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, and tears. And I'm sure you shed all those and those exciting moments at the same time, challenging moments, and you saw it through.
I did.
Who was in your life? You probably had somebody in your life that was maybe that motivator or somebody that said, you can do it.
Right.
Who was that person to you?
Well, I will tell you, my very first law enforcement job was in the city of Kerman. And the reason why I even applied and got that job is the chief at the time made it a goal of his to hire the first female police officer for the city of Kerman. And there weren't many women. Remember, that was in the fall of 1979. So for him to do that, it was cutting edge.
Yeah.
And I started with Kerman in 1980, almost 42 years ago now. But my mentors were men because there weren't women in the business to fill that role. And I'm so thankful for the men that were my mentors, that encouraged me, that said it was even possible. Because they gave me that opportunity.
When you had that moment of, it was introduced to you in law enforcement, because that wasn't what you had intended to do.
No, I thought I wanted to be a teacher, until I worked as a teacher's aide in a second grade classroom, and I knew that was not going to be my life's work.
Yeah.
That was not going to be my calling.
Your calling.
But
you're still teaching today.
As it turns out, it's a type of teaching, absolutely.
We had Debbie Hunsaker on here and from Alert Alite, and one of the neatest things that she said, she wanted to be a teacher. I don't know if you know that.
I don't.
And then she was working for her dad, and she said, you know what? And she wanted to be in law enforcement and education and teacher, all these different things other than working at Alert Alite, and she found herself. She does all those things. She has to investigate what's going on with a customer and what's happening. She has to be able to educate her people to be able to do the customer service. So she's doing all those roles. And you went to a dinner, I think, with your father, and that was a
Yes.
turning pivotal point for you.
It was. I got the phone call from my dad one night, and he said, I don't want to go by myself to this retirement dinner. Your mom's got a headache. Would you go with me? And I said, sure, Dad, I'll go with you. And that's where I met the incoming chief of police for the city of Kerman. And that opened the door to my applying at Kerman Police Department. And for me, I'm a woman of faith, so I know that didn't happen accidentally. That phone call was meant to happen that night, because the rest is history.
The rest is history. Yeah, but when it was presented to you that night, were you excited about it?
No, I wasn't. I was not. In fact, when he said that, I let him know. If I know of anybody interested, I'll let you know.
Let you know, yeah.
But I was a single mom at the time, and I needed a career. I needed to be able to support myself and my son, and that's what I chose. And so I know that didn't happen by accident. It was meant to be.
Yeah, it was fate.
But of course, the family joke is, had my mom not had a headache that night, who knows what I would be doing.
She could be the sheriff. I've met her. She could be the sheriff. Since 2006, and being the sheriff of Fresno County, I'm sure there was a lot of lessons to be learned, a lot of discovery, and it's almost every day it's something new. In law enforcement and being the sheriff in Fresno County, what is the biggest challenges in today with law enforcement that you're experiencing? And maybe that's something that's recently happening, or it's happened over the past couple of years. What would you share?
Our biggest challenge right now, and it's twofold, for internal and external. So externally, what makes it harder for us to do our jobs is a series of laws and initiatives that really favor the criminal rather than keeping the community safe. And it's not just one thing, it's many things that have happened that has created the atmosphere now that we have, like the mob theft out of the stores. Started with realignment, Prop 47, Prop 57, changes in prison policy. It really makes our jobs harder, and it doesn't keep you safer. So that's the external problems that we have. Internally, just getting people hired. We really have a challenge, and we still have people wanting to work for the sheriff's office. We have to go through more people these days to pass a background, for instance. So it's a great career.
I don't mean to cut you off, but we have to take a short break. We'll come right back. Let's talk about that, because that is a big challenge, and I see we need to look for good cadets. We'll be right back with more Business Leaders. Don't go away.
Business owners and executives from around the valley. This is Business Leaders with Lance Cardoza.
Welcome back to Business Leaders right here at KMPH Fox 26. If you'd like to watch past episodes of Business Leaders, go to businessleaders.tv and you can catch episodes like the one today and others right there at businessleaders.tv, or pick up your mobile phone and scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen. My guest today, Sheriff Margaret Mims of Fresno County. We were talking about trying to get young people, or people that are looking for a career, and being a deputy for Fresno County Sheriff's Department is a great job, but what benefits when someone's looking? You were talking about there's great opportunity for someone starting out. What would you say?
There are some benefits when you come to work for the sheriff's office that you'll find rather than going to work for another agency. And one of the things that we tell people is, first of all, we have a culture of allowing you to do your job. You're not micromanaged. As you can imagine, I've got deputies scattered throughout 6,000 square miles of territory. I cannot micromanage what they do. I hire them to make good decisions, and they're going to have to make those decisions without somebody telling them what to do. And so I think that's appealing to a lot of people, to be the decision maker on what they do. The other thing is, especially for our deputy sheriffs, we have a take-home car program. So they get to take their patrol car home. The advantage for them is, they have a work car that they can get in at home and go to work. The advantage for the community is you've got more patrol cars out there. So that in the neighborhoods, which is very good.
That's a good security system too, to have a
Absolutely.
sheriff's
It's a
car in your
deterrent.
driveway.
The other thing is the variety of assignments that you can do in the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
Not only do we have air support, we've got search and rescue. You can work in the mountains, you can work on the rivers, you can work on the lakes, you can have a canine unit. There's just such a variety of things you do. I've gotten to do so many cool things when I was a deputy sheriff for the sheriff's office that those experiences are worth a lot personally in your personal growth.
And you're really getting out into the rural communities of the county too. And when you're talking about they have to take ownership and not be micromanaged, as you've said, that do you see that they get to know their community that they serve and those communities that they protect?
They do, and one of the other differences when you're a deputy sheriff, you really better learn how to talk to people because your backup isn't right around the corner. It may take 15, 20 minutes for somebody to come to help you.
Yeah.
So you learn how to properly speak to people. And those community relationships are very important because it might be the community that comes to your aid. So you'd better have that good relationship with people in the community. And I will tell you, I've probably worked every square mile of Fresno County at some point or other, and we've got great people in our county. And I feel their support, and I think our deputies feel their support. There's a lot of loud voices lately that are very anti-police, but the majority of our communities in Fresno County support us, and I just want to thank everybody watching for that support. That means the world to us when we know you're out there supporting us because that's what we need to keep you safe.
Absolutely. And do you think part of that's what really prepared you to lead the county as a sheriff is, like you said, learning to talk to people, learning to meet those communities and finding that backup? And I would say, I would echo that in saying to people too, a lot of times we get afraid to say something and we don't want to ruffle feathers or we don't want to go there, that you don't be afraid to stand up for your community. And you have to band together. You can't just count just on law enforcement, but everybody has to communicate and they have to talk and talk to your deputy in town. So a lot of times they can get tips of things that are going on from that community.
The communities know their community the best. And when the deputies go in and they can develop the relationship, they do get really good information and help us solve crimes. It's a team sport.
Yeah.
It's not only law enforcement that does the police work. We need the community support and the community information because they want their communities to be safe, and they can help do that. We have a lot of smart people out there that can help us out.
Absolutely. And one of the challenges, I remember you sharing this story. I mean, I thought if you ever write your book, you got to have this in your book. That one of the hardest things, it was funny that when I heard you say it, because I'm sure there's a list of hard things that you have to deal with when you were first a deputy, but one of the hardest things you said was finding shoes that fit. Because they didn't make issue women's shoes.
No, they did. So the place where Fresno County law enforcement went to buy their uniforms was Walter Smith's on the mall, downtown Fresno, the old Walter Smith store. And so that's where I was sent when I was hired with Kerman to get my uniform. And I had to buy men's clothing, including men's shoes, to meet the uniform regulations. And I wore men's shoes for a long time before they did start making women's shoes for uniforms. But it was a sacrifice, it was, because sometimes it's just uncomfortable. But I love my job, and it truly is a calling, and you put up with some of that to do what you feel is good for you and good for your community.
As the leaders of the sheriff and working with the deputies in those communities, you have a program, and we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we want to talk about that program in a way that deputies can be able to connect with their communities. And we just got a few more seconds here, but we'll mention the Reading Posse.
Yes.
The Reading Posse. And when we come back, we want to talk about that and how people can get involved with the Reading Posse and find out more details about that when we return right here on Business Leaders. But I want to remind everybody, if you want to catch past episodes of Business Leaders, you have to go to businessleaders.tv or pull out your smartphone and be able to scan the QR code on the lower part of the screen, and then you can catch those past episodes. We also want to thank Flooring Liquidators for sponsoring this episode of Business Leaders. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk about the reading posse with the Fresno County Sheriff, Margaret Mims. Don't go away. More to come right here on Business Leaders, here in the studios at KMPH Fox 26. Don't go away.
Business owners and executives from around the valley. This is Business Leaders with Lance Cardoza.
Welcome back, everybody, to Business Leaders. I'm Lance Cardoza, and I'm sitting with the Fresno County Sheriff, Margaret Mims, and we were talking about the Sheriff's Reading Posse, and we're talking about deputies connecting to their community, especially young people,
Right.
especially today, more than ever. Law enforcement, as you lead them to connect with their community more, especially connect with the youth. I think youth are led to believe that police are bad, that the police car when it rolls through town, but you see a different way. And
I sure do.
You do, and they love to see the sheriff when he rolls through, or she rolls through.
I will tell you that I started the Sheriff's Reading Posse, first of all, because I'm a reader. I love to read. I grew up loving to read. And in fact, when I worked at an elementary school, one of my jobs was as a school librarian with children's books, and it just was important to me to read. I can't imagine a child in a household that doesn't have books available to them.
Yeah.
But it happens. And I read some stats one time that said 60% of the people in our nation's prisons are illiterate. And so that led me to ask then Linda Penner, who was a chief probation officer at our own juvenile hall, what the literacy level was for kids in juvenile hall. She told me they were all reading 4 to 5 reading levels below where they should be. So it struck me that we could reduce crime by improving literacy. So I started the Sheriff's Reading Posse. I want to deputize children to read. And I called Larry Powell, who was then the school superintendent, county superintendent of schools.
Love Larry.
And I said, Larry, I have this idea, and this is what I want to do, but I don't have any money to do it with.
Yeah.
And he said, we'll help you out. So he actually provided some bags that we get donated brand new children's books. We put them in these bags. The deputies carry them in their car. Our lobby office personnel have them in the lobby. We have them in the jail. Everybody that works at the sheriff's department has the availability to get these children's books. And what we do is when we come across a child in our community, we give them a brand new book, or we let them choose. They may be embarrassed to choose a book below what their age is, the reading level, so we just let them choose. We don't assess their reading level. The point is to get a book into the hands of the child to hopefully spark that love of reading and in turn improve literacy so that we reduce crime. So you see it's two loves of mine, law enforcement and reading, that we're able to put together.
I was going to say that education stayed with you.
It did.
You're still being able to provide that.
I've stood in line, in fact, at Chancey Park with books in a bag. We were going to see the trophies, the Giants trophies.
Oh.
And there were children there, and I took books with me. So the kids in line, I was able to give them books. So any opportunity I have to encourage kids delivers two messages. Reading is important, and the relationship that it builds between law enforcement and children. Just to your point about how young people feel about police officers and deputy sheriffs.
And that child, when they're handed that book, that's something they'll remember forever.
I think so.
Oh yeah.
I think so.
Coming from the deputy.
And they're free. They don't have to return them. Inside every book, there's a library card application. So they get some crime prevention material. They get one of our stars, the sticky stars that you can stick on them, and they get the application for a library card.
And that sticky star, that's where you deputize them.
That we deputize them by they can wear that badge.
That is awesome stuff. And then and you do that all throughout the year, so that's not a certain time, but do you have, I know Larry at that time helped you out, but I'm sure there's a need.
There's
always a need.
Yeah, if you go to the sheriff's office website, it's fresnosheriff.org, O-R-G, fresnosheriff.org, there's an icon for the sheriff's reading posse. It looks like an old-fashioned wanted poster. It says wanted, deputize children to read. So it's really cool. You click on that icon and you can find out how you can help with this effort.
That is amazing. That's good stuff. And what do you, the deputies, because I'm sure they embrace it and they love it. What do they? What feedback do you get from the deputies themselves?
I heard actually from one of our correctional officers, because believe it or not, people bring their kids into the jail when they conduct transactions.
Yeah.
And so we have correctional officers in our lobby who, when the children come in, they give them a book. And I had one correctional officer, and he told me, he said, that felt so good to give this book to a child, and he felt like they would never forget that. Somebody in uniform gave them a book and told them to enjoy it, and he said this child just looked at him with big eyes and said,
Yeah.
you can keep it, take it home and keep it, it's yours.
And like I say, I think that embeds into their memory and who gave it to them,
Right.
you know. And as they grow up, they're 13, 14 years old and running the neighborhood like I did and we did, you know, back in the day. You might question doing something bad with your friends, and you might talk to that deputy because they've built a relationship
Right.
in those communities, as you did when you all four corners of the county and worked it all. What share me an exciting moment as a sheriff? Just something you experienced at the time. We got about 30 seconds left here.
Okay.
That's something.
The first time I was able to go to the White House in the West Wing, it was during when Bill Clinton was president. I didn't get to meet him, but I got a tour. A friend of mine worked for the Secret Service. And that was one of those moments that I stood in the West Wing of the White House and I thought, how does a little girl from Carruthers end up here? How can this get any better? Well, it got better when I heard Aretha Franklin giving a concert on the south lawn of the White House while I'm standing in the West Wing.
Wow.
And that was a moment, it's such a cool moment for me, where I just remember my beginnings and know how fortunate I am to be where I am. I've got great people that work at the Sheriff's Office. I can only do my job with the support and the hard work that my people do. And I'm so thankful for them because they do the real hard work.
Thank you for being on my show. I know a lot of people love you, and I do too, and thank you for being our sheriff. That's all the time we have. Until next time, Tuesday mornings, 11 a.m.